On this episode of Inside the Mind of a Hacker, guys, we're going to talk gadgets. So last week I got off a meeting with a good friend of mine who's a penetration tester, works for one of the top four banks here in Australia, is also a security architect for them. And he reaches out to me and says to me, Andrew, you know what? I need to know more about the tools that, these security people are using and how they're compromising systems, as well as the real world approach. What do we do? And just maybe let me know on some of the gadgets that are out there. And I guess so I can start formulating our approach and sort of aligning our strategy in terms of the real world sort of thing. That's what's great, man. So let's sit down and talk about it. So we crafted out, I think it was about 50 or 60 devices that are out there that are awesome, little cool tools. So I thought this is going to be a really cool video to create and show you guys some of the real world tools that I use, that some of the security experts out there use in order to compromise and break into systems. So I've broken this down into 20 gadgets that I think every single hacker and both technical and non-technical person as well should know. They should absolutely know about that's out there and how they compromise businesses and compromise systems as well. So let's begin. So we've got 20 gadgets that we've got to talk about today as well. So let's go. So one is a Proxmart RFID scanner. In a nutshell, the RFID scanner, we'll talk about it in more depth and more detail a little bit later, but just a high level overview. It will basically clone any access card. So people that use access cards to get into facilities or building, you'll swipe your access card. People have the badges sitting on their hips. They'll use the access card to get into the building or get access to the facility. The Proxmart actually clones that access card. So every single card like these, or the fob cards, little fob devices, have their own unique identifier on there. We'll just clone that ID and we're basically in like Flynn. So a nice easy device right there. So the other stuff, we've got Wi-Fi jammers and cell jammers, along with 3G and 4G jammers as well that are out there. Obviously illegal devices, but you can still get your hands on them as well. So Wi-Fi jammers will basically send out the authentication messages out onto a network and will basically kick out anyone on that network. So it's really cool fun. Obviously, you can trace it. Anything that you sort of do on a network will have your source IP address. Most devices right now will sort of block that request or set that request as a sort of a fake request sort of a thing, and then it'll block it. So you can have a bit of fun on there. Cell jammers, you can block out any sort of signals with, using your smartphone. You make a phone call, it'll block the signal. Wi-Fi 3G connections as well will get jammed, so you can't use anything. Wi-Fi pineapples and adapter cards. In particular, we're talking about the Alpha card. The Alpha card is also my personal favorite as well. It's a great little appliance there. The Wi-Fi pineapples are basically essentially a man in the middle for wireless access points. So you can create access points, create rogue access points, evil twins. So you can pretend to be another access point, and then your access point will have a better signal. So what would end up happening is every device that's connected to the existing access point will then be redirected to you, essentially causing a man in the middle attack. Then you can decrypt and get access to all the information that gets routed through you. Next one is a Rubber Ducky. Rubber Ducky is an awesome little tool. We can create a bunch of payloads. So essentially what it is, it's basically a keyboard like payload. So anything that we can type on a keyboard, we can do with this USB stick. So we can pre-program it, create payloads is what we call it, create a specific payload for that, put onto the thing, and then it'll just run. We don't need to be there at all. So endless amount of stuff that we can create with those things, and I'll talk to you guys more about it a little bit later. LAN Turtle and LAN Turtle 3G. So LAN Turtle is just basically a man-in-the-middle device. We can connect that into a corporate network and have remote access to that network. Once we have access to that network, we can then do what I call a pivot point. We can compromise a particular system and then use that system to then have a look what else is connected to, and then start moving towards those systems as well. In essence, that's called a pivot point. We get access to that system and then pivot to another system. What else we can do is then do what we call a side channel attack as well. And the side channel attack is basically launching an attack from another host. So if we've got a host here, we want to compromise this particular host, and then we can launch, we've got our target here. We can launch all the attacks, from these compromised hosts that are essentially out there. So a side channel attack is just using another host to attack another host. A great way to be discreet onto a network. Obviously, it won't use your own IP address on any other sort of information as well. Every hacker will need a good set of lockpicks in their toolkit. You want to open up doors, see what's in there, and obviously get into data centers or other, server rooms as well. Packet Squirrel is another little cool tool, another man in the middle attack. You can create other bunch of payloads, remote doors, remote backdoor entries as well. Bash Bunny, another cool rubber ducky-like appliance. You can create a bunch of payloads on that. You can dump user accounts, TCP dumps, dump out basically any sort of connections are coming in and out of the network as well. Hacker F1 and Ubertooth basically sniffs out any sort of Bluetooth connections. And this one handles any sort of signals. So it's basically a software-defined radio, which basically can intercept radio signals. So anything that uses sort of SMS or GSM messages or any sort of GSM signals, you can intercept them. They sort of work really great hand-to-hand together. You can basically open up car doors, anything that you sort of use a remote connection to open up, or remote keyless entry into cars. You can start up cars, open up doors, that sort of stuff. Then we've got rainbow tables over here. And essentially rainbow tables, once you extract some information out of a machine, such as a username and password, it's usually hashed, meaning that a normal person like you and I won't be able to read it. So it's just garbled text altogether. So what a rainbow table does has all these hashes, maybe millions and millions and millions and millions of these hashes, and it basically brute forces that hash to export it into a clear text password. So rainbow tables are a great tool. We'll talk more about them. Magspoof and RollJam, these two devices are really cool. They were created by a cybersecurity expert called Sami Kami. And Sami Kami is a highly respected cybersecurity researcher in the industry. These devices cost around 20 to 50 bucks, I'd say. That's US, so you're looking at about 100 bucks in Australian dollars. Great little device. RollJam, similar to Ubertooth and Hacker F1, uses, you can remote open cars and doors and that sort of stuff. Magspoof is basically anything to do with credit cards. So you can capture credit card details, skim credit cards, get that information as well. Now, the Pitta device. The Pitta is probably one of the most coolest devices I've seen to date. This device was basically in Israel. It was developed in Israel, and it cost around 300 bucks US. So I think when we bought the appliance and device, it cost around 500 bucks or 500 to 600. And what this will do will actually, it will extract any information out of a system within about 19 inches in plain text, which means it will get anything out of a machine, anything out of a system within that proximity. Now, I don't know too much about it because we've actually bought all the appliances to start playing with. What I want to do next is create a video specifically around the Pitta device and show you guys exactly how it works and how it breaks off into systems as well. So that's a little bit about that device. Tails operating system is a great operating system. If you want to be truly anonymous, you can load it onto a USB flash drive. You can plug that into a laptop and it boots into its own secured operating system that doesn't use any hardware appliances on the device itself. So it uses full end-to-end encryption. It's got its own sort of encryption internally. It doesn't use any resources from the device. So if you're at a coffee shop or a library or at the hotel and you don't want to use the public desktops there that are available, which I wouldn't use at all because you don't know what's on them, they're publicly accessible. You basically put this thing on a USB drive, you plug it in, and it loads up into an operating system, highly secure, own email service, and you're fully secure using its own sort of network. Then you got your Raspberry Pis and your Onion Pis, full anonymity. I've always got problems saying that word, on anonymity, but using the Onion Pi is just a little device, a little computer-like device where you can just install anything on it, which is a Raspberry Pi. You can install Windows, you can install Linux, you can install Kali Linux, which is my preferred penetration testing toolbox, and that sort of stuff. And more details in just a moment as well. So let's begin. So guys, some of these devices I have here right now with me. Some of them I don't have with me because they're in production environments. Other ones we're building. We're actually building the Pitta device, which is down here. And I'll talk to you guys more about that in just a moment as well. But so most of all these devices I have. Some of them I don't have with me at the moment, but I'll talk about them. So number one is our RFID scanner. Now, this RFID scanner is just the one that sort of basically clones any sort of RFID tag. Anyone that gets into a building or into an access facility that requires a swipe card to get into, we essentially scan that onto here. We can use this as a standalone device, meaning I can just scan it on here, and then I can just use the device and then scan it onto the access door, and then that'll let me through. Or I can basically get all the RFID tags, get all the unique identifiers, the UID, and basically clone them to a separate system, and then go home later and then just write them to another spare card that you can buy online, and you can do that. So that's an awesome little tool that you can just bypass any physical access controls within the building. Really nice tool, especially if you're doing a physical penetration test. Quite easy to use as well. Then you got your little Wi-Fi jammers here. Your little Wi-Fi jammers are these things, so you can connect this up to your laptop. And then just basically have a bit of fun with the wireless connections. You can keep people off networks, authenticate networks, launch attacks onto the networks. Quite cool. You can also do the same thing with these things. And my iPad just fell. So there's a little Wi-Fi pineapples right there, and you can basically create man-in-the-middle attacks. You can create rogue access points, meaning you can create obviously man-in-the-middle attacks, and then have all the information come through you as the man in the middle. You can create, well, my favorite one is the evil twin, which essentially you're pretending to be like another access point, and then you have a better signal than the other access point. So all the traffic that's connected to that existing access point comes through you. Then you become that man in the middle again, and then you can start decrypting and SSL stripping all the information as they're viewing things, and then you get passwords and user browsing stuff and all that other cool stuff. Alpha card is this one. That's my preferred sort of alpha card that I love using. Particularly, you can do what we call packet injection. And then you can inject packets into the network and see how devices particularly handle those requests. You can export information out, crack passwords, encryption, that sort of stuff. Really cool device. The rubber ducky, I love this thing. So this is the rubber ducky. You can get a bunch of these online. I'm not sure how much we got them for, about $50 to $100 Australian, whatever. So essentially, you can just load payloads onto these devices, and it acts like a keyboard. So anything you can type on a keyboard, you can load onto this. You can create, desktop stuff. So one of the things that we created is called "You Got Quacked," and that's a payload. So you load the payload onto this device, you plug it into USB, and it'll just run a script. Now, this particular script was just for fun, so we loaded this onto a production system, which was running sort of a group policy. So any user that was sort of on that group policy essentially would get quacked, and then the desktop would just change to a big rubber duck, and then it had big fonts on there. They'll say "You got quacked," and there's about 300 or 400 users that would sort of do that as fun. So that sort of stuff you can do. I guess other sort of things like you can export user accounts. You can create reverse TCP sessions, meaning we can create backdoors into systems, and that sort of stuff. So really endless amount of things we can do with it. Other cool stuff is we can start creating, I guess, you can export browsing details. So anyone that's using Chrome or Safari as a browser, we can extract passwords or details out of that as well. Then you can export or crack sort of even more details such as their phone systems as well. So you can put a little connection as well, which connects onto that, which has the micro connection there. Plug that into a phone. You can export, crack data, export data, endless stuff, right? Then we've got these little cool things. These are land turtles. The land turtles are awesome. They're another man-in-the-middle attack, but used more on the corporate network side. And what they tend to do is, which one's the 3G? So yes, so this one's a 3G one, meaning that I don't need to go through the local area connection of the corporate company. So I can use my own dedicated 3G, 4G connection instead of the normal local area network of the company, which is even better. So this is great. So I can create a man in the middle, create some reverse shells, and then have full access to that network. Once I've got full access to that network, we can then create pivot points or side channel attacks, and then start moving within that network, always while having access to this. And the great thing about it, it looks like a great IT person's device, and the greatest thing, you can put in a little tag there that says, IT don't remove, and it looks great. And it really looks like a camouflageable device where you can just put into a big router stack or switch stack, and then it just looks right. And it's meant to be there. So to most untrained people, these things look really authentic. However, to most experts out there, you'll pick this up and you'll say, great, it's a man-in-the-middle attack, and you'll remove it out of the system. So that's that. That's a 3G one. So obviously it uses a 3G connection, doesn't go through the local area network, which means it makes it even harder to detect and to even know it's there in the first place. So a little neat tool there as well. Every hacker should have every hacker should have a great set of lockpicks as well, guys. So especially if you're doing a physical penetration test or any other sort of curiosity killed the cat, as I say. You want to open up the door and find what's actually in there. Can we get into the server room? What's behind this door? Why can't we get into this cubicle or whatever? Why is it locked? So you need to have a good set of lock picks with you that you can just pull out and you can just start tampering with locks and start opening things up and finding what's there, right? Packet squirrel. Your little packet squirrel here. This is another man-in-the-middle device. You can do other attacks. It's got 4 functions on here. You can just slide the function and has 4 sort of settings you can do. Once you load the payloads on there, you can run 1 payload, 2 payloads, 3 payloads, 4 payloads. Great little device. Really hard to detect as well. You can do great TCP poisoning, DNS poisoning as well, and TCP dumps. So meaning you can capture all the data that comes in and out of this device, especially on a corporate network. You can dump that out and then crack it if you need to, or decrypt it if you need to. DNS poisoning. You can poison the DNS table, meaning so if users are trying to access particular websites, you can poison that and reroute that information to another website. So if they are going to, let's say, google.com, we can reroute that to Facebook or to YouTube. Or, if you're a hacker, you want to reroute them to a specific website where they'll put in the credentials or the details in plain text. Then you capture the details. So really nifty and really easy to use. Really cool exploits that you can create as well. Hack RF1 and your Ubluetooth, obviously we spoke about them. Does your 3G, your signals, so you can sensor signals, your GSM signals, your SMSs, that sort of stuff. This one does your Bluetooth. They work really well together, meaning there's particular hacks now where you can open up car doors, control cars, especially with the Tesla. And I will talk more about that in more detail in the next video, where we'll talk about the car hacking that you can do, remote keyless entry sort of stuff, which is really great. And then we have the Bash Bunny. I don't have my Bash Bunny here with me. I've got about 3 or 4 Bash Bunnies, but 2 of them in production environments. The guys have got the other ones. I couldn't find it. So I just got to talk about it, unfortunately. Bash Bunny is just the rubber ducky on steroids. However many payloads you can add onto a rubber ducky, you can do maybe 10 times more on this little device. You can just do endless amounts of stuff. You can do reconnaissance, you can do information gathering, you can do network scans, you can do DNS poisoning, DHCP poisoning, just anything you can think of, you can just do it with this device. It is so great, and it just works like a champ in a real network. You can just plug it in, does its thing in about 2 seconds. Hey, I can unplug it, or you can just leave it there. You create a remote backdoor entry as well. So all these devices you can create backdoor entries with. The more entries you have into the network, the better it is, right? So once one connection comes out, you've got 2 or 3 more left. So as a hacker, we will always want to keep our options open, and you want to have your multiple choices of where we can go into and gain back access to that system as well. Moving on, we've got our Raspberry Pis over here. I've got my little Onion Pi. The Onion Pi is great for total anonymity, and I said that correct for the first time. I've always got problems saying anonymity, but anyway, so the Onion Pi is just a fully routable Tor network, goes through Tor networks. Great little appliance, just to secure your stuff online. And then you got your normal Raspberry Pi here as well, which it's just a little computer. Instead of carrying a full computer around, you can just run these things. You can install operating systems, install a lot of these appliances, and all you need is just a screen or whatever, right? So nice little thing there. You can install Windows, you can install Linux, you can install anything you really want. And these roll jam devices will also use a Raspberry Pi as well, which we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. I'm trying to find my, here it is. So right over here, guys, is what we call our rainbow table. And I love rainbow tables because it's a brute force type of attack. So any sort of details or credentials we extract from a company or a network or an Active Directory account, basically user accounts are basically hashed. And what that means is we can't read that information. It looks just like garbled text. It's numbers, it's letters, it's stuff like that. And we can't make out what it's like. It's not plain text, so we can't read it. So what a rainbow table does is you can use tools against like John the Ripper if you want to do like password cracking, and you can run it against a normal rainbow table, which will have close to a few million password hashes. So all you need to do is run that hash against this table, this database, and then it'll just take a matter of time until it reverse engineers that hash, breaks the code, and then spits out that hash into a plain text password that we can use and extract that information from there. So really nice and easy tool, great little tool that you can use in production environments, especially if you want to crack user accounts and passwords. Then we have over here is what we call the mag spoof. Mag spoof is just essentially a credit card reader. You can claim credit cards, gain credit card information, Amex details, Visa, MasterCard, that sort of stuff. great little device. And that device was about $20, which turned out to be, I think it was around $50 or so Australian. Don't quote me, guys. I'm just rounding up. I just hate talking about specific numbers. I just round it up or round it down. So that's, around $50. Little cool tool. Then we got the roll jam. The roll jam does something like what these two devices do. And that was about $50, thereabouts. So essentially, you can create you can open up car doors, you can start cars, you can do that sort of stuff. And I'll talk more about that in the next video, guys. So now moving on to my favorite. So this little device here is called the PITA device, the PITA. It's the portable instrument, portable instrument for trace acquisition. So what it does is within a proximity of, I think it was 19 inches or so, it'll brute force a computer. So what essentially would happen is that a computer would emit signals out of its, out of its devices, such as the CPU or whatever. And this PITA device will actually intercept that signal, and then it will decrypt all the keys, and then it will write all the information from that machine to, I guess, wherever you specify to write it to another machine or to another piece of sort of software or whatever. Now, I don't know the full concept of how it works. We've just bought all the appliances. I do want to test that out myself. I want to create a video around it, which I will be doing in the next series as well. So that's the PITA device. Cost around $500 or $600 to make. It's Israel built, which has a bit of great background to it. I'll give you guys more details in probably the next video around it, but I want to know more about how it actually works, what it does, and how it intercepts data, how does it decrypt all the information keys and that sort of stuff as well, which is going to be quite cool. And then moving on into Tails. Tails, the operating system, is a great operating system for anonymity. For those people that are security conscious, you want to load it up. I don't have a USB stick here, but you can put it onto a USB drive, create that as a bootable USB drive, plug that into a laptop or whatever, and then it will just boot into its own operating system. It will have its own web browser, its own email server, its own everything, and then you can just use that. It's its own connection, its own sort of standalone service. So you don't need to use any of the physical resources. It doesn't save anything to the hard drives. It doesn't read anything to the RAM memory or anything. It's just local. Once you turn it off, it's all gone. So that's an awesome little tool. And that's pretty much it, guys. Oh, and I forgot to talk about, did I talk about that? The 3G, 4G jammer. That's your cell jammer that, will block out any sort of 4G or any sort of phone connections as well, which is really cool. Illegal, but obviously you can still get your hands on them as well. And that's pretty much it, guys. I don't think I've got anything else to add. I'd love to know any more gadgets or tools maybe that you've used or that you know of. Let me know what you guys think. Which is your favorite tool out of all these? Do you have a particular favorite? For me, I would say that the 3G, 4G jammer is probably the best tool. You can disable phone connections, cell connections, any sort of signal, along with the Bash Bunny. The Bash Bunny is probably one of the greatest payload devices out there. You can launch payload attacks and that sort of stuff. So that's a little bit about that, guys, on this week. Any other comments or feedback? I love to hear it. This has been super fun. I love creating these videos for you. I hope it's giving you a lot of value. Until next time, guys, enjoy your weekend. Take care, and we'll see you guys next week.